Now. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Holly Duke, Director of Leadership and Engagement at the Ron Brown Scholar Program and the Director of the Ron Brown Leaders Network. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. We are having an exciting conversation just in time for the 2020 election with Zachary Hall, our expert in working on political campaigns, and he's going to be interviewed by Odemi Pesu. I want to introduce these two fine people briefly, and then I'm going to turn it to them to introduce themselves a little further. So our interviewer today is Odemi Pesu. She's a 2014 Ron Brown Scholar who has a degree in International Relations and Political Economy from Brown University. Odemi works as a speechwriter and coach. She recently launched her first podcast, Vanguard, which is dedicated to exploring education, entrepreneurship, and policy as it pertains to Black communities across the globe. Welcome, Odemi. And our expert today is Zachary Hall. Zach is a 2011 Ron Brown Scholar who has attended West Point and American University. Zachary has 5 years experience, at least, advising and working on political campaigns, including serving as an organizer and working on digital voter protection with the Hillary for America campaign. He's also very involved with Rhode Island Pride, serving as the Director of Development. And most recently, he's been admitted into a training program for Democratic campaign managers and operatives. So we're going to go quickly today because he's taking a break from that program to speak with us today. So welcome. So Odemi, I'm going to pass it to you. Will you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then let's have Zach tell a little bit more, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thanks so much for the introduction. So like Ms. Holly said, my name is Odemi, and I recently graduated from Brown, and I studied international relations and political economy there, but I'll actually be returning to Brown for a master's in public affairs this upcoming June. And I was super excited for this interview because I'm also interested in a career of public service and campaign managing, and also I love scandal. So this topic is definitely something I'm passionate about, and I'm looking forward to discussing with Zach a little bit more about his journey.
Thanks, Odemi. So Zach, can you kind of fill in the gaps there and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Holly, again, thank you so much for inviting me to chat today. And Odemi, thank you for moderating this discussion. I really appreciate it. As Holly said, I've worked on political campaigns for just about the past 5 years. I have done everything from your local state legislative races. I've managed local legislative races in Florida, Massachusetts, Virginia. I have done congressional in Philadelphia and Virginia, Northern Virginia, working more in finance. And my latest job during the 2018 cycle was working as the organizing director for the lieutenant governor's race there. It's been very exciting, best 5 years of my life so far, and I'm really excited to jump into questions and hopefully get everybody else excited to get into campaigns.
Awesome, thank you. Take it away, Odemi.
Okay, great. So Zach, once again, thank you for agreeing to just share some of your knowledge with all of us today. And one of the questions that I feel most people are curious about when they hear about this role and this type of job is, what inspired you to get into politics? Like, what was your why? What was your inspiration, your motivation? And just really, could you tell us about your first experience doing so as well?
I'd be happy to, and I actually love this question because I don't believe a lot of people, maybe besides you, Odemi, congrats, but I don't believe a lot of people dream about a career in political campaigns. I fell into it, and a lot of other people I know fell into it. I got into politics. Well, let me share a little bit of background. I think, growing up, especially those of us who are maybe a bit older here, remember that the entire story, our American dream that we were told from birth was that if you work hard, if you play by the rules, you're going to do just fine. In fact, you're going to do better than your parents, and you have a beautiful life to look forward to. 2008, the crash in 2008 happened, and that kind of shook a lot of people's confidence in the American dream. But I was in high school at the time. I worked hard. I played by the rules, and I got into one of my dream schools, which was the United States Military Academy at West Point. I am gay. I am out and proud of my sexuality. At the time, though, don't ask, don't tell, which was a law limiting LGBT individuals from being open in the military, was still in place. Long story short, I lost my chance at my American dream. I lost the opportunity of a lifetime because somebody there didn't like me for who I loved, for the person I was. And it started to get me thinking about the adversities people experience every day, the injustices. And, I've always believed in politics as a way to start to address that. But it dawned on me at that moment that we're not making enough progress. Not enough people are fighting for this. How do we tackle systemic change and make the world, everybody's lives better as a whole? I also really felt at that time it started to click with me that, again, this is why I brought up 2008, a lot of people have felt that way for a long time, that the stories they were told about working hard, playing by the rules, and being able to get your chance at a good life was just totally blown up and out of reach. I decided to get into politics because I don't think that's fair. I believe we all should have an equal opportunity to achieve, and I want to give everyone in America make sure that they have the tools, the resources, the support that they need to have a good life. I think that's very important. My first job in politics, I actually, again, most people don't go straight to campaigns. My first couple jobs in politics were internships at the periphery of campaigns. I went to a education reform political action committee that worked on changing the education system, trying to make it better. I went to a healthcare nonprofit to learn about the work that they do to make the system, again, more equitable, more accessible, that everybody got the same good quality of care. And I also interned for my local congressman and for Senator Elizabeth Warren way back in the day. And my last internship was at a consulting firm that specialized in fundraising for political candidates. I networked it. That's what internships are for, right? I networked it, and I landed a job on a congressional race in Northern Virginia working as a finance assistant. I was totally unqualified, but I found the boss that believed in me. She helped build me up. And I mean, what can I say? I've been working in it ever since. People keep hiring me, so I take that as a good sign.
Wow, that's really amazing. Like, you have such a wide array of experiences, and I think that's so important to see, because a lot of people sometimes think that to get into politics, there's just like this one shot, this one thing that you have to do. So I think it's great that you took like sort of a non-linear path to get to where you want it to be. Out of those few early experiences, one thing that stuck out to me is that you said you were unqualified for that big position, but obviously they thought that you were qualified. So could you talk more about that experience and like delving into a position where maybe you were still also learning on the job, and how you learned more about what you had to offer as well as the campaign process?
Uh, yes, and thank you. That's actually one of my favorite things to talk about right now. This certainly relates to my experience on campaigns, but I think a lot of people will relate to it in whatever field they're working in. You know the old saying, fake it until you make it? That's
Mhm.
certainly how I felt in my first few experiences. I didn't really have any training. There wasn't really any concerted effort. I had a little bit of experience, but I didn't know how to do the job top to bottom. So I faked it until I made it. But as I continued in my career, I can actually say there was never a job that I was fully prepared for. Every single
Mhm.
job, including the last one where I was managing 18 staff members, working on a statewide campaign, nobody ever taught me how to do that. I had to fake it until I made it,
Mhm.
rely on contacts that I've made, mentors reach out. Um, what I like to say about this is that I think somewhere in the middle of my career, I started to get imposter syndrome. If you're familiar with that, was, I don't actually know what I'm doing here. And somebody's going to find that out. And my career is going to go, poof, just
Yeah.
escape me. But what I've learned working on campaigns is that you don't really know what you're capable of until one, somebody gives you the opportunity to do that, and two, you just dive in and really see for yourself what you can do. I think the pressures in any job, but certainly in political campaigns, the stakes that are involved really elevate and bring your work and your determination to the next level. And I think along the way, I've just learned to let the work speak for itself.
Mm.
I'm going to continue. One of the things that we're talking about in this campaign manager training is that you're not going to know everything, and that's okay. Just let the work speak for itself. Do the best you can, and more often than not, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm inspired. And I think that's really helpful to hear for most of us who are in the beginning stages. So you've worked on various different types of campaigns. What do you think are really the keys to a successful campaign? And could you also define what success looks like to you as far as that goes, too?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. Um, I'll start with what are the keys, and then I'll define what a successful campaign is, if that's okay. Um,
Okay, great.
by far and away, the most important thing to a successful campaign is building relationships. No matter which way you look at it, whether you're looking at fundraising, whether you're looking at building a community of volunteers, whether you're looking at winning votes from voters, what have you, it all goes back to building a relationship as individualized as you can, speaking to people one on one. I think for everybody who's a part of the Ron Brown Scholar Program, we're all very excited about the money that comes with the scholarship at the beginning. But as you move through it, honestly, the greatest treasure to the Ron Brown Scholarship Program is the relationships that you build. Again, that is essential to campaigns. It's essential to building the coalition that's necessary to get you past the finish line. What is a successful campaign? This is a bit more nuanced. Um, you can define a successful campaign as winning your election. I think that is, however, very oversimplified, too broad of a measure. You're not always going to win. You can be a Democrat running in the most Republican state that you can find, and you're not going to win. And that's okay. But how do you measure a successful campaign? I think the most important thing is identifying early on what your actual goal is. I don't think that should ever be winning. I believe that goal should be building community power, building communities around X issue, advocating for your values as a community and sharing that with others. I'll give three quick examples. In a race where you know at the end the Democrat is going to win, a win isn't that important of a metric. Maybe in the primary, a more important metric, and then later on in the general election is what is this candidate, truly representing? What message, what values is this candidate standing up for? And have we shared that with the community? Have we really rallied support behind that? In a competitive general election, sure, you have usually very two stark contrasts between somebody who is left of center and somebody who's right of center. It's two competing value sets and ideas on how we should work together as a community, how we should govern. And win or lose, it's important in, did you share your values with the community? Were you able to build community power? Is this something that you can continue to build on? Or was this just, you went in it for the win, you didn't leave any lasting change? And I wouldn't define that as successful. So I think you can see a common thread here developing is building community power, creating lasting change. So even in my third scenario where, again, just for simplicity, if you're a Democrat with no chance of winning in a Republican seat in a Republican district, winning cannot be your definition of a successful campaign. Winning absolutely has to be, are you building your community power? Are you working together to share your values, to communicate with voters and, again, the community at large? Are you building change that you can continue to build upon until you can really see that value set taking hold? Does that answer your question, Odemi?
Yeah, that was a really great answer. And I like the emphasis on values because I agree with you. I think that that should be really the definition of success, especially for people who are representing the general public. So I love the answer. And
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
for that. I asked a lot of people also have questions about the reality of the work, like what really goes into being a campaign manager or working on a campaign. Are you going to be paid? What is your day-to-day like? So could you just give a short summary of what the primary responsibilities look like when you are working on a campaign?
Yeah, big question. I'll answer as best as I can. Not to be that person, but literally the short answer to every single one of these questions is it depends. Responsibility is working on a campaign. It depends. If you're hired for something, a little bit more specific, like an organizer, you're mostly talking to voters. As a finance assistant, of course, you're working in fundraising, communications, you're working in that field. But circumstances on the ground can change very quickly in campaigns, and generally successful campaigns adapt to those new circumstances. What you're hired for may not be what you end up doing at the end of the election. And I think it's important to be flexible there. The upside of that is that you get a lot of experience in many different areas of expertise. Are you going to be paid? Well, if you're hired, then yes, you should be paid. I believe that Democrats especially need to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and we fight for a living wage. We should be paying everyone a living wage. I will share this though. My first job, I was working 70, 80 hours a week for the campaign, and I was paid an effective rate of $6.50 an hour. I was
Wow.
salaried, so that's what it is. But when you break it down, and I never suggest you break it down, the pay isn't glamorous to start off with. But I believe the people who get involved in campaigns, and especially the people who stay in campaigns, their sole motivation is not making as much money as possible. It's about, working in their community. And so money comes the longer you work in it. You can become fabulously wealthy, after quite some time, but it takes time to build there. If you're interning, that's a different story. I think Democrats are largely moving to pay their interns. There's actually a great organization that's being run by my friend Carlos Mark Vera. It's called Pay Our Interns. He just successfully lobbied the U.S. Congress, Senate, and the Senate and the House to create a, I believe, $9 million internship fund. So now every office in Congress should be paid. So also sign up for that if you're interested. And that's certainly moving down into campaigns and other lines of work. It's going to depend on the campaign and the candidate. Not all of them will be paid, but I think it's moving in that direction. What do you do once the election cycle ends? That is a interesting time that people who work on campaigns called fun employed. You work a lot of hours in campaigns, so you don't necessarily get to have a great work fun balance. But once the campaign ends, it's done. And you have plenty of time to have all the fun you missed out on. I will say this, there are elections everywhere, somewhere. There will always be some election coming up, whether it's a local city council race. Some states like New Jersey and Virginia have off-year legislative races. So like this year coming up, 2019, there's always more work to be had. But generally people who stay in this for the longer term are a little bit more flexible with that. There's been times where I've gone 5 months without taking on another job, but that was more me. I would say that's more me than the average experience. I do want to caveat that with this typically isn't a field that people spend their entire life in. People do it for many years, and that's fantastic. People do it for a lifetime, that's fantastic. There's people who do it for 1 or 2 cycles, and that is fantastic. I really just want to stress here that it's really important that more people become involved in the political process, making their voices heard, helping, build power in their communities and make their collective voices heard. So don't be afraid to do this, explore it. And if it's not for you, that's a-okay. I love that everybody here is interested and enthused, and I absolutely encourage that. Finally, and I'll try to make this quick, will working for a losing candidate impair my chances? Again, it depends. Sometimes in campaigns, you see this especially in large campaigns like gubernatorial or presidential races, senatorial races. You have a lot of people in the primary, and only one person, one candidate can proceed to the general election. Again, campaigns are always about using our resources effectively to be as successful as possible. That includes, who is on our team. If you work hard, if you find success on whatever campaign that is, there's a great chance, a great opportunity that the winning campaign can hire you to help them out. So that's why, again, I don't like to define success in this realm as winning or losing. You can have lots of success. I've found lots of success on losing campaigns, but it certainly hasn't hurt my chances for professional development and opportunities down the road. On the flip side, I think it's also really important whenever you're working to remain positive. There can be a lot of bad blood after really nasty races. You can see 2016, I think, is a good example between Hillary and Bernie. There were plenty of people on the Bernie team that were brought into the Hillary campaign because they were successful in their work. There were plenty of people who absolutely were not invited because of generally how they conducted themselves during the campaign. So I wouldn't be worried about losing a campaign. I would always recommend doing your best, aiming to be successful, whatever that means for you, and doing it in a positive, professional manner. And as long as you do that, you will always, always be fine. We're always looking for new talent.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear. Okay, so I know time is running out a little bit, and we don't want to keep you over. So as far as what goes into taking your first shot, I think the biggest question here is, how do I get involved? I know you said networking is really important, using your resources as you see them through like school, internships, programs like that. But what goes into applying for a position, and how do you attain a realistic shot if, I don't know, your granddad is not a senator, or like, you don't have a direct linkage? Yeah, because this was something I always grappled with. So I would love to hear your answer to that.
I actually really like the picture that's included in this slide because the easiest way to get involved in a campaign is simply raising your hand. Again, not enough people are involved in the political process, and especially as it comes to a career and work. Not enough people know that this is something you can do. As I just mentioned, we're always looking for new talent. We're always looking for people to get involved. Raise your hand, let them know you're interested, and I guarantee you that they'll be reaching out and chatting with you to see how you can help out. Specifically, there may be an application on their website to apply for jobs or internships. Do that. If there's not, there will always be, at the very least, a email. Write in. If there is a campaign office, stop in, let them know you're interested. And I certainly do encourage you to network, and you don't have to sign up for $500 plate galas to meet somebody who can get you somewhere. It's just as simple, again, as being involved in your community, applying for internships, stopping, if it's an elected official running for re-election, just stop into their office and say, hey, I'm interested, how can I get involved? Their government office won't be able to do too much, but they can absolutely connect you. So again, it's just finding a way to say, hi, I'm interested, and you'll be brought into the campaign with open arms. Do you have a realistic shot at high-profile campaigns if you don't have an inside connection? Yes, absolutely. Again, we are always looking for talent right in, whether it's a presidential, a senatorial, or even just a city council race that's getting a lot of community attention. Just raise your hands and say, hey, I'm interested. How can I help out? If it comes to work, it may be a little bit more difficult. High-profile campaigns generally get staffed up sooner because it's high profile. But if you're just getting involved, generally, if you're choose an internship or you have volunteered, you will already have an inside connection. So just as simple as that.
Excellent. Hey guys, it's Holly, and I just want to look at the time because it's about 4:58. Zach, do you have time to take a question or two, or do you want to just give us the best way to follow up if we have questions?
Sure. No, I 100% have time. 5, 7 minutes. I can absolutely do that.
Okay, awesome. So there's a few people who are listening live, and if you have a question for Zach or Odemi or me, you can ask your question now. The way you ask a question, if you look at your screen, you can either raise your hand, hit that hand icon, and I'll take you off mute, and you can ask your question out loud, or you can type your question into the box, um, and I'll read your question out loud. So we'll wait for just a second to see if anyone has questions. I will kick it off with a quick question. Um, my question about working on a campaign, let's say you're a college student, you're doing it in the summer, you stopped into their campaign headquarters and you wanted to get involved. When you are what's the expectation in terms of just kind of like the day? Is it like a 9 to 5 job, or is it kind of, are the hours kind of squirrely?
Goodness, I wish I could give you a better answer, but it depends.
Ah,
And that's the nature of campaigns. Everything's flexible, so many moving parts. We make it work. I think the most important thing when you're getting involved, if you're going to be staff, this is a lot less negotiable. You're going to be working quite a bit of hours. But if you're volunteering, if you're going for a summer internship, uh, have a conversation about what you can and what you can't do. People, the campaign staff will absolutely respect that. And they can, if you can do a full day, something like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., fantastic. We love that. But if you can only be around for the afternoon, that's a-okay. There is so much work. They will absolutely have something formative, something great for you to do, something very educational.
awesome. So Will Guillory has a question, and I should have known that coming from Ron Brown, we would get this question, and this is like a whole other webinar, but maybe you have a word or two you can say about recommendations for people who are interested in running for office themselves, and how should they go about building a campaign team?
Yeah, I love that question. Um, Let me start off with this. Whether Republican or Democrat, we're always looking for people to, again, step up in their communities. That's what this is all about, is representing the people that we live with, that live around us. And we want to do everything we can to encourage you to run. Google trainings. There are plenty of trainings on both sides that will give a brief introduction to candidates on top to bottom. How to build a campaign team, how to fundraise, how to round up votes. Talk to local elected officials in your community. I'm plenty of them. I'm sure will be more than happy to make time to share their experience. And that's probably one of the best ways to learn, is talking to somebody who's been through that rodeo, whether they're elected or somebody who has ran but didn't win their campaign. They still could have had a very, very successful campaign, and you could learn a lot from them. Um, and just I'd also say sign up for general like email lists. Follow the Democratic Party on Facebook's. Sign up for Emily's List email. Look for groups of whatever political affiliation you may be, and there will always be somebody who can lead you in the right direction.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much. If you want to start with a small office, you can come to Charlottesville and run for the school board because my
There we
representative is trash and we need someone badly.
go.
All right. Oh, Demi, did you have anything? Did you have a question? Oh, I think she accidentally got muted. All right. Well, Odemi, if you come back, insert yourself, and then but I'm going to start wrapping this up and say thank you, Zachary Hall. That was excellent. We got a lot done in a little bit of time. I know you're super busy, so we're going to let you
Always making
go.
time for Ron Brown.
You are
Always.
wonderful. We appreciate it. So if anyone has a question or wants to follow up, you can get in touch with me, get in touch with the Ron Brown program, hduke@ronbrown.edu, and I will help get you connected while these two fine people move all over the country getting their stuff done. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the webinar off.
Well, Holly, can I actually interject?
Absolutely, please.
Okay, I just wanted to say three very quick things. One,
Please.
if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Certainly, Holly has my information. You can find me on Facebook. I'm responsive there, and my email, zacharytaylorhall@gmail.com. Pretty simple. Two, I want to be very clear. My experience is in Democratic politics and Democratic politics only. If you are interested in Republican politics, I encourage you to get involved. I believe a lot of things will be similar. Some things will be very different. But again, reach out to me. I'm very happy to connect you who is much more knowledgeable about Republican politics. And then finally, if you're looking for a race to get involved with this summer or after college, I have two quick suggestions. One, try a local race. They're going to need you a lot more there. You're going to learn a lot more. And quite frankly, presidential races are cool and important. The local races are extremely impactful, just like Holly was saying about her representative on the education board in Charlottesville. Option number two, one of our own Ron Brown scholars, Chaz Beasley, is a state representative in North Carolina. He just announced his campaign for lieutenant governor of North Carolina. He is absolutely fantastic. I couldn't recommend him enough. And it would be a great way to talk to an elected official, network, or get to know another Ron Brown scholar better, and of course learn about political campaigns. But again, thank you so very much, Holly. I'm really glad we were able to do this.
Thank you. That was a very generous addendum. I appreciate the extra time and the extra wisdom.
Of course, of course. I
Okay.
hope everybody has a great day. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.